He ruined my reputation so no one else would want me. The Duke's twisted obsession. He destroyed her good name not to push her away, but to ensure he was the only one left to catch her. But when the man who ruined you offers salvation, is it love or a trap? Would you take the hand of your destroyer? Subscribe for more stories like this. The summer sun hung high over Ashworth Manor on that terrible afternoon in 1892. Lady Eleanor Hartley stood in her best pink dress, watching the other young ladies laugh and dance at the garden party. She didn't know that her whole life was about to change because of one man with dark eyes and darker intentions. Eleanor was 19 years old, with golden hair and green eyes. She came from a good family, though they weren't rich. Her father was a baronet, which meant she had a title but not much money. Still, she was kind and pretty, and several young gentlemen had started paying attention to her this season. That's exactly what the Duke of Ravencroft couldn't stand. Alexander Blackwood, the Duke of Ravencroft, was 28 years old and the most powerful unmarried man in England. He was tall and handsome, with black hair and steel-gray eyes. He had more money than he could ever spend, but the only woman he wanted was Eleanor, and she had made the mistake of turning him down 3 months ago. "No, Your Grace," she had said politely but firmly. "I don't think we would suit each other well." No one said no to the Duke of Ravencroft. No one. Eleanor stood near the rose garden, talking with her friend Charlotte. She felt someone watching her, and turned to see the Duke standing across the lawn. His eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "He's staring at you again," Charlotte whispered nervously. "Eleanor, I think you should be careful." "Well, he can't have me," Eleanor said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "I don't love him, and I won't marry without love." What Eleanor didn't know was that the Duke had been planning this day for weeks. He had waited for the perfect moment to make sure no other man would ever want her. Lord Pemberton, a nice young earl who had been courting Eleanor, walked over with a smile. "Lady Eleanor, would you honor me with a walk through the gardens?" They walked together toward the hedge maze, talking about books and music. Eleanor felt happy and relaxed. The Duke watched them go, and his jaw tightened. It was time to put his plan into action. 20 minutes later, Eleanor and Lord Pemberton emerged from the hedge maze. But as they walked back toward the party, something felt wrong. Everyone had stopped talking. All eyes turned to stare at Eleanor, and the whispers started immediately. "Lady Eleanor," Lord Ashford said, stepping forward. "The Duke of Ravencroft has informed several of us that you and he have been intimate. He says it happened at the Middleton ball last month." The world seemed to stop spinning. Eleanor's face went white. "That's a lie. I've never been alone with the Duke anywhere," but the damage was done. In 1892, a woman's reputation was everything. Even the suggestion of improper behavior could ruin her completely. The Duke walked over slowly, his face showing fake concern. "Lady Eleanor, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm willing to do the honorable thing and marry you, of course." Eleanor stared at him in horror. Now she understood. This was his revenge for rejecting him. He was ruining her reputation so that no other man would want her, forcing her to marry him or face social destruction. "You monster," she whispered. "Careful, my dear," he said quietly. "You can marry me and save what's left of your reputation, or you can refuse and be ruined completely. Either way, you'll never belong to anyone else." Eleanor ran toward the house, tears streaming down her face. Behind her, she could hear the whispers growing louder. By tomorrow, everyone in London would know. The Duke stood in the garden, watching her run, with a small smile on his face. She would come back to him. She had no choice. 3 days passed, and they were the worst 3 days of Eleanor's life. She stayed locked in her bedroom, refusing to see anyone except her mother and Charlotte. The invitations that used to arrive daily had stopped completely. Even the servants looked at her differently now, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. "The Duke has sent another letter," her mother said carefully. "He's asking to call on you tomorrow. He says he wants to discuss arrangements for the wedding. Eleanor's hands clenched into fists. There won't be any wedding. I will never marry that man. Never. Eleanor, please try to understand. Marriage to the Duke might be your only option. No other man will have you now. The scandal has spread everywhere. Even our closest friends are distancing themselves from us. I would rather live in poverty than marry him, Eleanor said, her voice hard and cold. Her mother looked shocked. Eleanor, you don't know what you're saying. Is that really better than being a duchess? Yes, Eleanor said simply. Because at least I would be free of him. The next morning, her father announced that the Duke would be calling that afternoon. Lord Hartley looked exhausted and defeated, but his voice was firm. You will receive him, Eleanor. This family cannot afford any more scandal. If you refuse him and remain unmarried, we will all be social outcasts. Your younger sister will never find a husband. Is that what you want? Eleanor felt trapped. She hadn't thought about her sister, Lucy, who was only 16 and dreaming of her own debut next year. At exactly 3 o'clock, the Duke arrived. Eleanor's mother showed him into the drawing room where Eleanor waited, her back straight and her face pale. Why are you doing this? Eleanor asked bluntly. What do you gain from destroying my life? He smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. I'm not destroying your life, my dear. I'm offering to save it. You're ruined, and I'm your only hope. You created this situation. You lied about me. Either way, the result is the same. You need me now. He walked closer. Do you really think you can survive in society without me? Your family will be ostracized. Your sister's future will be destroyed. Eleanor felt like she was drowning. He was right, and they both knew it. I hate you, she whispered. Perhaps, he said, his voice softening slightly, but you'll marry me anyway. I'll give you 1 week to come to terms with it. The week passed in a blur. Eleanor's father pressured her constantly. Her mother cried and begged. Even Charlotte gently suggested that maybe marrying the Duke was the least terrible option. On the 5th day, a letter arrived from Lord Pemberton. He wrote that he now believed Eleanor was innocent, that the Duke had manufactured the scandal. Please know that I believe you, and I would still be honored to court you, scandal or not. Eleanor cried as she read it. Someone believed her. Someone finally believed her. But even if Lord Pemberton was willing to overlook the scandal, his family never would. And more than that, if she tried to marry anyone else, the Duke would destroy them too. That evening, Eleanor made her decision. She called for her parents and told them she would accept the Duke's proposal. Her mother burst into tears of relief. Her father actually hugged her for the first time in days. The Duke came the next morning, clearly expecting her acceptance. I'll marry you, Eleanor said flatly, but I want you to know that I will never love you. I will never forgive you for what you've done. That's acceptable, he said calmly. Love can come later. Why? She asked suddenly. Why me? You could have anyone. For the first time, something like real emotion crossed his face. Because from the moment I saw you, I knew you were meant to be mine. I watched you laugh with other men, and it drove me mad. You were the first woman who ever said no to me. I tried to forget you, but I couldn't. So yes, I ruined your reputation. But I did it because I would rather see you miserable and mine than happy with anyone else. Eleanor stared at him in horror. That's not love. That's possession. That's madness. Perhaps, he agreed. But it's all I have to give you. The wedding was 6 weeks away. It would be a grand affair, as befitted a duke's marriage. Only Eleanor felt like she was walking toward her own execution. The morning of Eleanor's wedding dawned gray and cold. She sat in her bedroom, staring at herself in the mirror. The wedding dress was beautiful, but she felt like she was wearing a shroud. The church was packed with guests. Eleanor walked down the aisle on her father's arm, feeling like she was moving through a nightmare. At the altar stood the Duke, devastatingly handsome, his gray eyes fixed on her with that same intense look. The ceremony passed in a blur. When the vicar pronounced them husband and wife, the Duke kissed her gently, and she tasted her own tears. They were married. She belonged to him now. There was no escape. That night, the Duke showed Eleanor to her bedroom. "This is your room," he said. "Mine is next door. But I won't use the connecting door tonight. You need rest." Eleanor stared at him in confusion. "I don't understand. Eleanor, I know what I did to you was unforgivable. But I don't want to be the kind of husband who takes what isn't freely given. So, I'm giving you time. When you're ready to be a wife to me in truth, you'll tell me. Until then, I'll wait." Eleanor didn't know what to say. Of all the things she had expected, this wasn't one of them. "Why?" "Because maybe I'm trying to prove to you that I'm not completely a monster," he said with a sad smile. "Good night, Eleanor." The next few weeks were strange. The Duke was true to his word. He didn't force himself into her bedroom. Instead, he courted her. He brought her breakfast in bed. He asked about her favorite books and ordered them for the library. When she mentioned missing Charlotte, he arranged for her friend to visit every week. It was bewildering. This wasn't the monster who had ruined her reputation. This was a man who seemed genuinely desperate for her approval, her happiness, her affection. "I don't understand you," Eleanor told him one evening. "You destroyed my life to possess me, but now you're trying to make me happy. It doesn't make sense." "I'm selfish," he said quietly. "I want you to be happy with me, not just resigned to me. I want you to smile when you see me instead of looking away. I want you to forgive me, even though I don't deserve it." 1 month after their wedding, Eleanor received a letter from Lord Ashford, the Duke's friend. He confessed that the Duke had paid him to spread the rumors. He had written proof that Eleanor had been innocent all along. Eleanor found the Duke in his study. She threw the letter onto his desk. Lord Ashford confessed everything. "I have proof now, Alexander. Written proof that you ruined me deliberately. With this letter, I could prove my innocence to society. I could ruin you the way you ruined me." The Duke stood slowly. "You could," he agreed. "You could destroy my reputation. Society would turn on me for lying about a lady's honor. You could have your revenge. Eleanor, is that what you want?" Eleanor stared at him, the letter clutched in her hand. This was her chance. But as she looked at him, she saw something in his eyes that made her pause. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "Why shouldn't I?" she whispered. "No reason," he said quietly. "I deserve it. If you want to destroy me, Eleanor, I won't stop you. I'll accept whatever punishment you think is fit." And suddenly, Eleanor understood. He was giving her power over him, the same way he had once had power over her. He was making himself vulnerable. She walked to the fireplace and threw the letter into the flames. They both watched as it burned. "Why?" he asked hoarsely. "Because revenge won't undo what happened," she said. "And because maybe you're not completely the monster I thought you were." The Duke pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "I don't deserve your mercy," he said. "But I swear to you, Eleanor, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it." 3 months passed, and autumn arrived in London. Eleanor found herself actually starting to feel at home. Alexander continued his patient courtship. They spent their evenings talking about everything. He told her about his lonely childhood, raised by cold parents. She told him about her dreams of love. "They weren't foolish," he said one evening. "You wanted to be loved for yourself. That's not foolish. That's beautiful. But you didn't love me for myself," Eleanor pointed out. "You wanted to possess me." "I did," he admitted. "But somewhere along the way, it became more than that. I started wanting your happiness more than I wanted you to belong to me. That's new for me." Eleanor looked at him in the firelight. "I don't want to hurt you," she said quietly. "I'm still angry about what you did. But I don't want revenge anymore. I just want to understand you." He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know if I'm capable of real love. My parents never loved me. I was raised to take what I wanted, to show no weakness. So when I met you and felt something I'd never felt before, I didn't know what to do with it. I did what I'd been taught to do. I took control. That's not love, Eleanor said softly. That's fear. I know that now, he said. I'm trying to be different. Every day, I try to be the kind of man you could actually love. Something in Eleanor's heart softened. Show me, she said. Show me the man you're trying to be. Over the following weeks, Alexander did exactly that. He showed her the running of his estates and asked for her opinions. He supported her when she wanted to start a charity for women who had lost their reputations. He proved himself again and again. That night, Eleanor stood at the connecting door between their bedrooms for a long time. She thought about everything that had happened. The scandal, the forced marriage. But she also thought about the past months. The patience he had shown, the kindness. Eleanor took a deep breath and knocked on the connecting door. Come in, Alexander called, sounding surprised. She opened the door. He looked shocked to see her there. You said you would wait until I was ready, she said quietly. I think I'm ready to try. To really try. To see if we can build something real from all this mess. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. I don't want you to feel pressured. Eleanor smiled, and it was the first real smile she had given him in months. I know you can wait, and that's why I'm here. Because you've proven that you care about what I want. That's not the man who ruined my reputation. That's someone different. Someone I might actually be able to love someday. Alexander pulled her into his arms. I love you, he whispered. Not with that twisted obsession. I love you the way you deserve to be loved. And I'll spend every day proving it to you. The months that followed weren't perfect. Eleanor still had moments when she remembered the garden party and felt angry. But those moments became less frequent as time passed. Alexander proved himself again and again. 1 year after their wedding, Alexander took Eleanor back to Ashworth Manor for another garden party. Eleanor felt nervous as their carriage pulled up. We don't have to do this, Alexander said, taking her hand. But Eleanor shook her head. No, I want to face this place with you by my side. I want to show everyone that we survived. They walked into the garden together, and Eleanor held her head high. They walked through the rose garden where it had all begun. Do you regret it? Alexander asked quietly. Do you wish none of this had ever happened? Eleanor thought about it honestly. I don't know, she admitted. What you did was wrong, but it also brought us here, to this moment. And I wouldn't trade this moment for anything. Alexander cupped her face in his hands. I would, he said seriously. If I could go back, I would do everything differently. I would court you properly. I would earn your love instead of stealing it. But then we wouldn't be who we are now, Eleanor pointed out. We wouldn't have fought through all this darkness to find the light. Eleanor kissed him, there in the rose garden where her reputation had been destroyed. Then keep proving you're sorry, she said. Keep being the man I'm proud to love. Forever, he promised. I'll prove it forever. And he did. They had 4 children together. Eleanor made sure to teach her daughters that they were worth more than their reputations. And she taught her son that real strength wasn't about control, but about kindness and respect. Sometimes, late at night, Alexander would hold Eleanor close and whisper, Thank you for forgiving me. And Eleanor would kiss him and whisper back, Thank you for proving you were worth forgiving. Their love story wasn't perfect. It started with lies and obsession, but it ended with real, genuine love. Eleanor had been ruined so that no one else would want her, trapped by a duke's twisted obsession. But she had survived. She had fought back, and she had found love in the most unexpected place. In the end, the duke got what he wanted, Eleanor as his wife. But Eleanor got what she wanted too, a husband who truly loved her, who respected her, who would spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of her. And that was a happy ending after all.